Hello, I know what you're thinking. Why have they let that uncharismatic Maris Piper host one of the proper bits of the show? Don't worry, I'll be back to the opinions about stuff bit just as soon as Dan Maher's back from crying about how much better I am than him at playing computer games. But for now, they've asked me to fill in because I was the most centrally placed genetically between a tiny Irish woman and a kinky Aussie vampire. But I'm not here just to talk about how pale those two are. I'm also here to talk about Ubisoft.
Ubisoft get a lot of abuse, and in fairness, they do deserve some of it. Firstly, whilst annual release schedules aren't intrinsically evil, they aren't great if your games ship without skin on the characters' faces. Secondly, execs who, let's face it, are employed to make a profit, might be worried about the perceived limited market appeal of female protagonists. But to argue you can't have a female lead because it's too much bother to animate their hair is a close second in the dreadful justification awards to Kojima's explanation of Quiet's near nudity in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Arguably, the main criticism of Ubisoft, though, is that many of their titles have become cookie-cutter, with Assassin's Creed and Far Cry being two of the most obvious examples. At their worst, these games become soulless imitations of what came before, with copy-and-paste towers, mini-maps, side quests. I am boring myself just listing them.
Watch Dogs, for example, is a title so unfun that you literally send text messages to bollards. And things have gotten so out of hand that even games that aren't by Ubisoft are Ubisoft games. Watch Dogs is actually fine. Underwhelming, but inoffensive. Like pretty much everything Paul Simon did after he split up with Garfunkel, apart from Graceland. Graceland's great.
Based on everything I've said so far, you might be surprised to discover I actually don't agree with the grief that Ubisoft have got for this genericification, not a word, of their titles, because, spoilers, I actually quite like it. They've spent years developing open-world games with a core narrative and optional side quests, so why wouldn't we want them to use the best practices they discovered for delivering those things on future titles?
The answer, I guess, is because gamers end up getting a bit bored with it, and, as a result, Ubisoft have finally relented and given Assassin's Creed a year off. Except they haven't. In the first 2 months of 2016, we had 2 new titles under the franchise's banner: Assassin's Creed Chronicles India and Russia. The latter released with so little fanfare that you can only assume Ubisoft got their 9,000 plus employees to simultaneously suck its announcement back through a lifetime supply of trumpets.
For what it's worth, I actually really enjoyed Assassin's Creed Syndicate. As someone who'd walked away from these games several years ago precisely because of that cookie-cutter mentality, I was ready for that sort of experience, and I thought it held up well.
Don't get me wrong though, I'm not unilaterally in support of Ubisoft. Things like the release of Unity, where they only allowed reviews to be published 12 hours after the game's launch, are symptomatic of a business that wants your money more than it wants you to enjoy a good product.
It didn't used to be like this, of course. 10, 15 years ago, Ubisoft were making games like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time or Beyond Good and Evil, so where's that creativity gone now?
Well, Rayman Origins and Legends are good examples, but there's even more creativity to find amongst some of the studio's quirkier titles. Child of Light, Grow Home, Valiant Hearts and more are all worthy of your time, and might not have been brought to fruition by a studio that didn't have the vast amount of money the planet wasted on Unity to throw at trying something a bit different. Though, they're also shoveling out Tom Clancy's Tough Gun Dudes 26 and 27, so...
In the end, none of this actually matters, does it? If you've had enough of Ubisoft's identikit open-world titles, don't go on Twitter and whine about them like a massive typing baby, just go and play something else. There are lots of games. Right, if I've not been sacked, I'll see you next week.